Good morning, everyone. Gents, if you could take your seats as soon as you can, please. Welcome to our July meeting of the Development Management Committee. This is our first in July. We have one at the end of July as well because we do 13 meetings a year. And so there's no practice alarm today. So if the alarm sounds, please exit through those doors and out onto the car park. And if you have a mobile phone, I see somebody doing it, can you please turn it off or put to silent? And a warm welcome to the public watching our webcast. This meeting will be on our YouTube site and is archived in line with the South Norfolk archive policy. An agenda is published on our website plus any updates of the agenda. And today's agenda did have 4 applications, but the last application has been deferred, so we've only got 3 to do. And this is a meeting that's held in public. It's not a public meeting, and so we have registered public speaking in place. It starts with the town or parish council, then objectors, then the applicant, agent, supporter, followed by the local district councillor. And you'll be invited to come forward to the public speaking desk to make your points. Each group can speak for up to 5 minutes in total. And if you want to, you can use more than one person, but please, you will only get 5 minutes. So be careful with your time amongst you. And I'll tell you in the speakers, I'll tell you with 1 minute to go, and then we'll ask you to come to a conclusion. All members, I can say, have received in advance the agenda, presentation and update sheet and lobbying. We've been lobbied on things. And planning officer will present the key points of each application to the committee. The members will then determine by a show of hands the applications before us today, and I'll give you the result of that vote. And please note that if you intend to speak about the application, your name will be recorded in the minutes, and the minutes are kept indefinitely. Apologies, please, Leah.
Yes, Chairman. We've received apologies from absence from Councillor Graham with Councillor Bills appointed substitute, Councillor Eddy with Councillor McCuskey appointed substitute, and Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. No urgent business. Declarations of interest. I can confirm that all members have been lobbied on applications 1, 2, and 3. Are there any other? No. Minutes of the last meeting. Members happy with the minutes? Yeah. So we're going to go to application number 1, which is land south and west of Gillingham Services, Norwich Road, Gillingham, and it's Richard. So when you're ready, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Got a few slides today, so bear with me as we go through them. So this application proposes the expansion of existing roadside services at land south of Gillingham Services, Norwich Road, Gillingham, and the project includes the erection of an electric vehicle charging hub, a farm shop, a drive-through cafe, restaurant, sandwich shop / bakery, buildings for industrial storage distribution uses, with trade counters and ancillary showrooms, some roof-mounted PV arrays, new internal road infrastructure, sustainable drainage features, structural landscaping, upgraded pedestrian and cycle routes, and dedicated car parking and associated works. So this slide shows the red line site boundary for the proposed development. This slide shows an aerial image of the proposed site and the existing services, together with its position relative to the strategic road network, which comprises the A143 to the north and A146 to the east, both of which are joined by the main roundabout. The image also shows the residential area of Gillingham, more to the south and southwest, although some residential property and church buildings in particular are also sited to the east on the opposite side of the A146. This is an aerial 3D image of the site showing the existing services, which consist of, from clockwise from top left, you've got the Shell petrol filling station, you've then got McDonald's, Starbucks, KFC, The food and drink outlets also contain a drive-through facility each. The image also shows the line of tree planting along the existing southern boundary and attenuation pond to the south-east corner. This slide highlights local listed buildings and the Gillingham Conservation Area. This slide highlights the conservation area for Gillingham a little bit further. This slide shows an overview of the proposed layout of the development before we look in more detail at the individual elements of the existing and proposed. The next slides will show a selection of photographs of the area and site. So if you can just hold that image in your mind. So some photos. So this is a street view image looking south from the existing roundabout, linking the A143 and the A146, taken at June 2024. This is a street view image closer into the site, again from June 2024. This photo is adjacent to the existing McDonald's looking south. This is now this year. This photo is adjacent to the existing Starbucks looking south. This image is taken adjacent to the KFC unit looking to the southeast with the site beyond the existing roundabout. So further panning now towards the southeast and the east, this is the view of the site. This view is from the Spine Road roundabout and is towards the south with the site head. On the opposite side of the roundabout now, at the edge of the site, these views are towards the east and show the landscaping in March 2023. And now, just over 2 years later, starting to develop, as you can see in the larger photos. This view shows the existing footpath link from the roundabout to the street, this having been implemented following the 2020 application that created the initial expansion involving the Starbucks and KFC sites. This is the view to the northeast, taken from the footpath. Helmet Way is shown to the right of the image with the vegetation enclosing this area from the site. This photo from the base of the footpath is taken nearer to the street and is looking north. This photo is taken now back at the top of the footpath link near the roundabout, and this view is towards the west. This photo shows the view taken during early March 2023 with the site beyond the trees to the rear of these properties on Helmet Way. This same view shows a typical summer image during June 2024, that same broad position. Moving further away now to the very edge of the Broads National Park boundary at Dunborough Road, Kings Dam. The most visual point here, looking northeast, is the pale-coloured residential cul-de-sac development of Daisy Way, which was built around 4 to 5 years ago. The development site is set beyond this estate, and the vegetation separating it to the development site. So back again to one of the earlier slides. This slide shows the development proposed in its relationship to the existing services and the surrounding context. So if we move closer in now, this slide shows the different following elements in clockwise order. You've got the extended Spine Road and the connecting roundabout. You've then got the small food and drink drive-through unit. Again, going around clockwise, you've got 6 trade units with centralised parking between class EG3, B2 and B8 uses, and they include trade counters with ancillary showrooms. You've then got the EV charging facility with ancillary retail unit, And then further around, you've got the farm shop. You can see there's also an additional attenuation basin, an additional landscaping, and a rerouted footpath linked to the street. Further to the information provided by the applicant and analysis by the Economic Development Officer, the proposed development may create around 115 full-time equivalent jobs. This is the small drive-through unit. Images and materials, which include coloured cladding and grey brick. This slide shows the proposed floor plan of the trade units. This is numbers 1 to 3 on the northern side. This slide shows the proposed mezzanine floor plan and the roof plan of the same trade units, numbers 1 to 3. This slide shows the elevational design to these trade units. It utilises green cladding as a core material to the rear and side facades to blend the development with its vegetative backgrounds. This is the ground floor plan now of trade units 4 to 6 on the southern side. And this is the mezzanine plan of the same trade units 4 to 6. We've also got a section drawing here of these trade units 4 to 6. And the elevations for 4 to 6, that includes the south elevation, which would face the residential area being almost entirely blank, and the design continues the same around the side elevations. These are the images, this image is of the proposed trade units. This is again numbers 4 to 6, looking south to southeast. Some further images. The bottom left image is of 1 to 3, units 1 to 3 looking northeast. The materials again, as I say, the colours cladding and grey brick with mid-grey roofing and solar panels. This is an image from the new roundabout proposed. This view is towards the northeast. This plan shows the retail floor units and roof plan which would serve the EV charging facility. This slide shows the proposed elevations to this retail unit. The materials feature light and dark coloured cladding systems and glazing in the main. This is a CGI image of the same building. This illustrative image shows broadly how the development at this point would be seen with the EV charging in front of the retail unit. The document HM Government Taking Charge, the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Strategy, confirms that the private sector has a critical role to play in providing convenient, affordable and reliable charging for all, including on key major road routes. This location is positioned at the convergence of 2 key main A roads that further link wider across the Norfolk and Suffolk counties, including some key settlements and tourist destinations. This image shows a typical BP Pulse charge site. The exact details will be conditioned as to the final elevation and plan detail design. This plan shows the proposed farm shop floor plan and the roof plan. And this slide shows the proposed elevations and the sections of the proposed farm shop. These are the proposed materials for farm shop. This is a contemporary take on a more traditional barn-like appearance, complementary to the adjoining buildings proposed and also the existing landscape. This is a CGI image of the farm shop. And this CGI image shows the development at the central Spine Road roundabout with the EV charge station and the farm shop in view towards the southwest. Some further images of this part of the development. Now we move on to some section drawings. So you've got section AA at the top. This section shows the relationship of trade units 3 and 6 and the new existing vegetation tree cover and property on Hemmets Way. BB in the middle, this section shows the small drive-through food and drink unit, the swale area, the new roundabout position, and again existing and proposed vegetation and tree cover. And CC at the bottom, this slide shows the EV charge station, the ancillary retail unit, the attenuation basin, and further vegetation tree cover. This slide shows the hard landscaping proposals. And this slide shows the soft landscaping proposals. These will include a significant level of new planting, and much of the existing landscaping that was planted to the southern boundary of the original expansion phase will be retained or transplanted to enclose the site on all sides, strengthening and adding to the existing tree cover and woodland areas. The new planting scheme proposed would positively and significantly further expand upon approximate 2,000 whips transplanted in further coverage and extent. The additional planting proposals would deliver around 79 heavy-duty standard trees, 46 standard trees, and approximately 400 woodland whips. The species listed are of native variety, including field maple, silver birch, hornbeam, holly, Scots pine, wild cherry, English oak, white beam, rowan, white willow, goat willow, alder, and bird cherry. In addition, a significant lineage of hedge planting which would be undertaken, which would increase hedgerow presence by around about 100%. This slide shows the landscaping proposed in better illustration. This photo shows the whips to be transplanted. This image shows is looking north along the new relocated footpath link and shows the native planting and hedgerow once established to either side of the footpath link. This slide shows the recently updated March 2025 Environment Agency Government flood mapping. The site, in terms of its position to higher risk flood zones 2 and 3, is outside of this completely now. The EA and the lead local flood authority looked over a detailed flood modelling exercise prior to this change, when a very small portion of the southern end of the site, where the proposal was to be covered by the footpath and attenuation basin, was just within the flood zones. The statutory bodies raised no objection to the flood risk assessment and the detailed drainage strategy, and they also recognised the improved betterment of surface water flood risk that the development will further help to achieve. In terms of surface water, this is the identified 1 in 30 likelihood of flooding. This is limited to the area where the footpath is located principally. This pooling is believed to result from natural runoff from the site, topography, and the runoff from the ditch system alongside the street. This image shows the 1 in 100 year risk for surface water. And this image shows the 1 in 1,000 year risk. In combination, this shows the surface water extent at these levels on the site. And taken on a wider context in terms of surface water, the 1 in 1,000 year flood risk extends across a much wider area, particularly to the south, as you can see there. As mentioned, a detailed flood risk assessment and drainage strategy has been produced, and this includes drainage into an attenuation basin for surface water. This slide from the flood risk assessment drainage strategy shows the consideration of betterment areas around the northern and western sections of Hemmets Way, principally their gardens, and to the west of property on the street, which are noted can have some potential for surface water flood pooling. The strategy introduces a culvert link to help alleviate some of this by improving distribution of water into the ditch systems, also owned by the applicant, from the site across the street. This in turn helps to better separate flows that can accumulate to local gardens and property by spreading and releasing the flows more evenly. So in conclusion, Chair, as the report sets out at 5.136 onwards, it is accepted that the development will mean further incursion into the open countryside from the current services site, both for expanded food and drink services, but also the creation of the EV charging station, which is at a key point in the wider strategic road network, and modern new trade units. Importantly, local plan policy DM 1.3, parts C and D are therefore relevant. When considered against the local plan policies, DM 2.17 and DM 2.4, no sequentially or locationally preferable sites have been identified, whereas this application site does offer some level of connection to the existing settlement area and some public transport routes and walk-in cycling links for staff and customers, creating accessible travel and business opportunities to and from the expanded services. The impacts that have been identified further to the MPPF, economic, social and environmental objectives in respect of principally landscape and visual matters, and some amenity and environmental considerations have been sufficiently addressed or mitigated, and in some cases enhanced beyond their existing design appearance through design, landscape and biodiversity measures, through control of construction and operation, through appropriate weather conditions. Where a very low level of less than substantial harm was identified against key listed heritage assets at Kenyon Row and Forge Grove, this has been assessed to be outweighed by the public benefits of the scheme, which include the EV charging facility. On balance and overall, the scheme is considered to acceptably reflect the key principles of sustainable development as advocated by the local plan policies DM 1.1 and 1.3, and demonstrates both compliance with specific development management policies in respect of particularly Part C of DM 1.3, but also demonstrates overriding benefits in the economic, social and environmental dimensions in terms of DM 1.3 Part D. So the recommendation is therefore, as referenced in the update sheet, to authorise the Assistant Director of Planning to approve, subject to conditions, and completion of the unilateral undertaking relating to delivery of one proposed farm shop and expiry of the notice period and updated submitted certificate in respect of the corrected owner. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Some members are going to questions and Sorry. The footpath, walking, wheeling, cycling is a big issue in county at the moment. So is that footpath for walking and cycling, or is it intended for just walking? Is it mentioned?
It was built as it's a permissive path. It was built with the intention of footpath use. It is obviously accessible if obviously cyclists want to use the path as well. We've not tried to restrict that, but principally it's designed as a footpath link. There are cycle routes to the site on the wider road network. Obviously, if members felt that could be upgraded to the appropriate width as a cycle stroke footpath route, I don't think the Act would have any issues with that.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
You stole my thunder there, Chair, but I agree that looking at that, the current thin path going is quite slim. I wouldn't want to cycle and walk on that at the same time. I think being as we're trying to encourage sort of like biodiversity and sort of like less carbon usage, then I think that as part 4 on that on the conditions there is it was looking at that to become a cycle stroke footpath.
Gary?
Thank you, Chairman. Just 3 little questions, to be fair. Obviously, one of the objections obviously states that the village boasts dark sky. Is this an official dark sky area or not? Second question is, obviously, you stated there were different classes of the retail units or the buildings. Could you just give a couple of examples of what those classes actually mean? Obviously, a lot of public don't actually know what those mean. I'll let you answer those ones because I've slightly forgotten the third one, but I'll remember in a second.
So yeah, it's not in a dark sky area. I've checked obviously the mapping, and it's in quite a bright area, which is obviously, the area is quite dominated by principally highway lighted on the 2 main roads, but obviously the existing services, and of course you've got the residential areas which are street lit as well. So it isn't in a dark area. I accept that obviously, we are moving further into the countryside, but certainly in terms of dark skies, it's not in an area where it's encroaching into a dark area. In terms of the different use classes, in terms of the trade units, principally they are designed for light industrial, general industrial, storage and distribution uses. So when we say those different classes, that's what we mean. We have had a strong interest, or the applicant has a strong interest contractually from the likes of particular occupiers that would be particularly notable in the storage and distribution trades. We have got the trade counters in there as well, so there's no particular end occupier signed up yet, but we know that the sort of units would be probably more expected to be the sort of storage and distribution type uses.
Thank you. And I've just remembered the third one that I had, sorry, apologies. Obviously, the EV charging points, obviously, if this is approved, obviously a lot of that will be done under the reserved matters for you guys. Could we make sure that those are at least DDA compliant, because a lot are not, they're just disabled friendly, but also could they possibly put in EV points that are large enough for a commercial vehicle, because actually there are no 3.5 tonne or 7.5 tonne commercial charging points anywhere in Norfolk so far, from what I understand.
So yeah, so obviously this is a full application, but this is one element we have looked to condition. There is some strong interest from a particular operator, and obviously I touched on that in the slides. In terms of the actual detailed design, there's no reason why we can't look at that in a bit more detail in terms of the disabled provision. Obviously we would look anyway as part of the Norfolk County Council parking guidelines. But in terms of obviously commercial vehicles, I'm sure with the applicant and the likely operator, we could certainly look at how we can get some commercial vehicle charging in there.
Any more questions? No? So we're going to go into public speaking, and we've got Julia from the Parish Council. Hello, Julia. If you could pull that little stand right in front of you. Yeah, a bit further, closer if you can.
Okay.
You're going to have 5 minutes. We'll warn you with 1 minute to go.
Okay.
And then we'll ask you to come to a conclusion. And please give your name at the start.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm Julia Johnson. I'm chair of the Parish Council in Gillingham, and I'm representing the villagers. So if we go to my first slide, thank you. Further to Richard's slide showing the location of the planning application, I just wanted to show you the cumulative effect of the 3 applications that are in Gillingham at the moment and all undecided. There's 2 housing developments, and this particular one that we're looking at today, I wanted to show the scale of those compared to the size of the village. It's obviously overdevelopment. My biggest concern is the cumulative effect of these that aren't being considered when all these planning applications are being looked at separately. Next slide, please. So the consultation process, obviously I'm representing the villagers, so there's been a lot of local interest, depth of feeling, and lots of objections to this application. There was quite 76 initially, but obviously we've been looking at this for 2.5 years now, so there's been lots of re-objections, there's been a petition and plenty of discussion around it. So I'd urge you to give serious consideration to the local depth of feeling for it. Next slide, please. So the site lies outside of the development boundary of Gillingham, which, as far as I'm aware, contravenes planning policy, and it also doesn't comply with policy 15 of the Joint Core Strategy, as the development is out of scale with the village and is definitely not proposed in order to service the needs of the village or its surroundings, which are open fields. The development is and always will be a car-based facility, being a services. Sustainable travel options to the site are absolutely minimal. The main bus stop is half a mile walk away, which hardly is really a good service. And that cycle route is not a publicly owned facility, so the risk is that somebody could just remove it from use at any point in time. The premise of roadside services is servicing of passing trade. The introduction of the trade units to the site is fundamentally a different activity and land use. There is no justification for that in this area that I'm aware of. In addition, the design of the trade units as two-storey buildings are unnecessary and hugely impactful to the adjacent single-storey bungalows, which are already in existence. Next slide, please. So the local impacts are already huge from what is happening in the village previously. The light pollution, if you look at that photo in the bottom, that's from the existing services looking at it from a very long way away. You can see it in the next village. And whilst we don't have a designated dark area, just about every street in Gillingham has no street lighting, so there is a huge impact to the village. In addition, surface water flooding happens constantly in the village. And that top corner photo shows the corner of this field where this is intended to be, and they regularly have had to pump out the water from that corner of the field as it floods with any kind of surface water. Next slide, please. I'm going to kind of skip through this probably, but initially, discussions with the planning office were that South Norfolk didn't see the need for the extension to the services and wouldn't be supporting it. That seems to have changed dramatically. The cumulative effect of the three applications is considerable, and I believe they should all be considered and come to committee together so you can all look at them as a whole and we can see the impact of all this additional hard surface.
1 minute remaining.
I'll skip to my final slide, please. In summary, for the reasons above, we urge you to reject this application. If not immediate rejection, we urge you to defer your decision so that you consider the impact of all three applications and the scale of the overdevelopment to Gillingham. If the application is permitted, we respectfully request consideration of removal of the trade units due to the encroachment on residential property and this being an inappropriate location for this type of development, reducing the height of all buildings to single storey to minimise the impact on the adjacent bungalows, and potentially the reduction in scale of the EV charging, given there is already opportunity to place units in the existing retail car park areas. Happy to respond to any questions, and thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you, Julia. Any questions for Julia? David?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you mentioned that you believe it's overkill on the battery charging units.
Yes.
And it just suddenly sprung to my mind. I've read through the reports and what have you. Have we any idea of the actual through traffic that uses the A146?
I personally don't have, but I can compare it to, motorway services have 20 charging points. This has 20 charging points, and it's not a motorway services.
Yeah.
And the traffic will be nothing like what you get on a motorway. So, the scale of it to me is out of proportion, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Can I go back to either Richard or Tracy? A couple of things were mentioned. Light, a picture of the existing one and the light there. So if I can ask you to talk to that first, and then the cumulative effect and how that is assessed and what we do or don't do on that issue. So I don't know which one of you wants to take the lead. Richard? If you could just turn the microphone on. Off you go.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of light, we've obviously looked at this in some detail. We've had a supplement to the landscape visual impact appraisal. That's looked at also nighttime impacts. Obviously, the Broads Authority have also been looking at this, which is, more this photo here is probably more positioned towards their direction. There is the situation whereby we have got an approved lighting scheme from the first expansion. That's been installed. There's also existing network lighting from the two principal highways. Essentially, as part of the original expansion, the applicant is willing to retrofit that lighting to a much lower level, and also on this new proposal we are also looking at the same lighting Now that lighting would be a dimmable product, which would essentially reduce from 20 lux down to 5 lux when no areas of movement are detected. So hopefully during the night time when it's quieter and obviously the use is not operating as intensively as during the day, we'd expect that to be a lot darker. And I think this is another key thing with the application is it will have a betterment in terms of improving the existing lighting, which we recognise could well be improved. So we have looked in detail. The Environmental Health Officer has raised no objections to that. Obviously, we've got a condition down to adhere to that to that lighting. And in terms of the sort of cumulative impact, we've looked at this in some detail. We've treated this on its own merits, but we've looked at them together. What we would say is that there's 3 applications which have their own access points. They are separated by their own vegetation. The 2 residential sites are both less than 50 units, and we are looking to bring those forward to Planning Committee in the very near future. But they again will have their own appraisal and their own recommendation. We are looking to obviously recommend this for approval, but obviously without predetermining those particular applications, they will be treated on their own merits. But we are happy from a cumulative point of view, due to the access arrangements, due to the vegetation and the separation, that there's not a cumulative impact here. So I don't know if Tracy wants to mention it.
You mentioned the lux. Do you know what the current lux is? You're saying 20 down to 5 if there's no movement. On the existing number 1 site, do you know what the lux is on that?
I don't know the exact lux levels on that. The agent's here, he might know, but we can look at that.
Yeah. No, sorry. So any further questions?
Chair, I've got one question
Yeah.
for Richard.
You may.
Richard, just a follow-up question. So the Senior Heritage and Design Officer has called out good pedestrian connection to the village, and yet we've had a concern raised around the fact that if this is a private footway, it could be potentially removed in the future. I can see under condition 4 of the 25 conditions, it says detailed plans of footways, cycleways, foul and surface water drainage. Will that detailed plans of footways involve some kind of guarantee or obligation to keep that footway open? Or how does that work?
So yeah, we've got that that detail there. That was obviously a highways recommended condition, but there's absolutely no reason why we can't look at the wording of that to make sure that that footpath is open 24/7. Obviously, it is a part of the approved plans, which we're looking to obviously approve the application in accordance with those approved plans. So it would have to be installed and laid out. It's a slightly diverted route, a better route, a more direct route. But there's no reason why we can't make sure that there's a strengthening around the wording to make sure it's open at all times.
So permissive route has an owner. So is that ownership within this application?
It is, yes.
Right, thank you. Julia, there's no more questions. If you take your place again, thank you very much. So we've got Lorraine, Edward and Charles as objectors. Can you move that back in front of you, because it's a very difficult system in this room. So I'm going to give you a warning, which I know Leah gave you. We have 5 minutes, and we'll give you a warning with 1 minute to go. So use your time carefully. So, and anybody who starts, please give your name for the record. Yep.
Yes, sir. I'm Charles Streeton, a barrister representing the Ashfield family from Geldeston. As I've explained in writing, granting permission today would be unlawful. Objectors have not had a proper time to comment on very recent amendments, and what is proposed is substantially different from what was applied for. Changes to the application also mean that officers' assessment cannot be relied on. The alleged green benefit from the battery storage system has vanished, albeit the planning assessment does not reflect this, nor do officers identify the importance of this in terms of the absence of a proper sequential surface water flood risk assessment. There are other reasons why permission should not be granted. The admitted impact on designated heritage assets, on residential amenity, and on the Broads, Norfolk's own national park. Local residents will speak on that. But to focus on just one point, what is proposed is in reality a small retail park. It will divert trade from struggling local high streets and it will seriously damage local businesses. Why divert to Bailey's Delicatessen when there's an M&S en route? Why go to Cooper's, a hardware store exclusive to East Anglia for over 100 years, when there's a Screwfix by McDonald's? Why get your coffee from the award-winning Mayfair in Bungay, run by a young local family, when it's easier simply to drive through? Planning policy actually prohibits unallocated out-of-town developments like this. To justify breaching this policy, the applicant has tried to rely upon an inadequate report years out of date. Shockingly, your officers appear to have signed off on that. This development is inappropriate, it is contrary to the local development plan and to national policy, and it cannot lawfully be permitted.
My name is Edward Hockey. I'm the owner of Gillingham Hall, which is the Grade 2 star listed property mentioned in the public reports pack. It lies within the conservation area at Gillingham and is situated nearby to the northeast of the proposed development. Public reports pack informs us that the conservation area does not currently benefit from an area-based appraisal. Historic England have not commented on this planning application. No one has visited my home to assess the impact of the application. So although there is no heritage impact information available in the pack in front of you, the writer of that pack is striving to the conclusion that less than substantial harm would be caused to the conservation area at Gillingham. The impact of this development on Gillingham Hall should be, but is not considered separately in the pack. It is a Grade 2 star listed house, and that means that it is regarded as a particularly important building or one of special interest, and that comprises of the entire group of all listed buildings, a group of about 6%, 5.8% specifically, of all of the listed properties in the UK. When a building has that designation, local councils must consider the impact on it before approving nearby developments. As that has not yet been adequately considered, material considerations, particularly heritage value, are being ignored at present. What I'm offering at my expense are the following reports: 1, heritage impact; 2, environmental impact; 3, landscape to include reference to the Broads, equivalent to a national park nearby; a flooding report; a land use report. I ask for no more than reasonable time to have those prepared. I've been in contact with several environmental and planning consultancy agencies, with late July timelines having been provided as realistic. I've learned of this application 2 weeks ago. No correspondence has ever been received by me about it. I've used that time diligently to find an agency or a consultancy to help me. In the last 2 weeks, I have asked for a time extension, and I've been told that the only solution is to have a 90-second slot today. Having registered my interest to speak to you, I am asking that, like the applicant, I can have professional support in making my case to you. To close, in the content of the last 90 seconds, I find myself having to make my case to you, and I will have no right of appeal, of course, because I'm not the applicant in this matter. Many people in the area are going to be affected by this application. I am very fortunate in life that I am able to afford for the reports that would be necessary to support them. You'll be hearing in a moment for Lorraine, who has a very difficult reality to me. I would invite you to consider that in the absence of a right of appeal, I have only option remaining to me were this to be granted would be judicial review, which would be expensive and a totally avoidable waste of public funds if you grant what I respectfully invite you to do.
My name's Lorraine Greenwood. I've lived in the village for 34 years. I have twins with special needs. I'm worried about the safety of my young adults and me. I moved here because of the tranquility and the fact that there are a few people down here, but now it's not the case. When I turn the corner to go for a walk, I'm already tense, not knowing what I'll find. Will it be people urinating, people having sex, several illegally cars blocking an access-only road, or at risk of getting run over? I would rather have a pub because they have stricter licensing rules and less cars. Sometimes I've stayed in the village for 20 minutes to avoid going past these cars parked when I want to go back. The noise, the proposal's only offering part of the village protection. Near the church, roadside or the street will have bund or acoustic fencing. Some of the trees need to be evergreen as it's far worse in winter, and you show no pictures in winter. And litter. The litter policy is not working. These are all the receipts that I've got from litter that's been dumped down my road.
Right. Thank you. Any members, any questions for the three objectors? But I think I'm going to come to you two because quite a few issues raised there, which I'm not completely happy about, some of the language of it. Are we legal? Because we've been told we're not legal.
can let Tracy talk about this more, but we have had the report reviewed by our solicitors, and they're content that the report is sound. Obviously, there's a difference of opinion there. I quite understand that that's the case, but we have done all the checks that we feel we have done necessary. The application has been extensively advertised. There's a couple of other points there. Historic England have commented regularly throughout and have asked that they raise no comments and that we seek our own in-house special advice. So from a conservation point of view, we've had no need to take the national body any further. But yeah, I don't know if Tracy wants to mention anything.
Just to add to that, we've assessed it against the correct relevant statutory tests, against the development plan and on planning material considerations. We've carried out the correct processes in terms of advertisement and consulted the correct people. So we are confident we're making a sound planning decision, recommendation to you today. Okay,
thank you. So no questions. Lady and gentlemen, if you'd like to take your seat again, please. And I've now got Tim. Tim, who's the agent. So you heard the instructions, Tim. You've got 5 minutes, warning at 1 minute. Please give your name when you turn the microphone on.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. My name is Tim Rainbird. I'm the agent acting on behalf of the applicant. I've been involved in the site and the wider roadside facility since 2017. The officers are recommending that planning permission is granted, a recommendation the application fully supports. The recommendation follows a thorough assessment of all relevant issues, leading to a planning balancing exercise as set out in the officer report. That assessment is based on the merits of the planning application before you, and I'll ask you to take the same approach. Significant weight has been afforded to the economic benefits, including the creation of up to 100 new jobs. This scale of job creation is particularly important in the current economic climate, where growth is seen as central to the ongoing economic recovery. As evident at the existing roadside facilities, this will provide important local and often flexible job opportunities within walking distance of Gillingham Village and good bus and cycle accessibility to Beccles. Significantly, there are no objections from statutory consultees. The applicant has worked closely and collaboratively with your officers, working through the various technical issues arising from the consultation process. Some of those issues have taken some time to address. This includes flood risk and drainage, despite the site now sitting outside flood zone 2 and 3, as you've heard. During this protracted period, limited scheme changes were made. However, very recently, the applicant took the decision to remove the battery storage facility. This followed concerns from a number of objectors that you've heard from. The facility had not been appropriately justified and that it was significantly encroaching on Geldeston. Whilst we don't agree with those points, in the absence of details, the facility was removed from the development. Turning to design, I hope members will agree that this is well designed, having full regard for its location on the edge of Gillingham Village and its residents. The following points should be highlighted. Substantial tree planting and landscaping is proposed, 120 new trees and 400 whips, in addition to 2,000 whips that will be transplanted. Sustainable drainage features incorporating attenuation basins and swales, which have considerable biodiversity benefits. Planted bunds and other acoustic attenuation provide a strong visual and acoustic buffer to the south, protecting the village and its residents. Impressive sustainability credentials, including significant on-site local energy generation well above policy requirements. 20 electric vehicle charging spaces support the use of electric vehicles on the wider highway network, particularly for those travelling long distances to visit the area. We're upgrading the existing southern footpath to cater for pedestrians and cyclists. Lighting has been sensibly designed to meet rural environmental standards, preventing sky glow, greatly reducing spillage with automatic lighting dimming controls. This design will also be retrofitted to the existing estate road lighting. 29% biodiversity net gain is achieved, 3 times the 10% mandatory requirement. New hedgerow planting will secure additional gains. These are significant. Litter is recognised as having been an issue. These issues have been arising because of the appointed management agency. This has now been resolved. A greater obligation is proposed such that new litter management plan will be submitted covering the entire site. This will resolve historic issues. Despite what you've heard from objectors, there are no sequentially or locationally preferable sites that have been identified that could otherwise accommodate the commercial uses proposed. If there are no alternatives, the advantages of this site are even more compelling. Indeed, further expansion is proposed to meet strong local and regional demand on this strategically located site. This will both improve and diversify the existing commercial offering, which has become an important roadside facility for both residents and pass-by trade, including those visiting the area. The offer includes a small convenience store, which is not currently service offered in the Gillingham Village, an important benefit in terms of improving access to services. To sum up, the scheme is, without any doubt, within the public interest. As clearly set out in the officer report, there are significant social, economic and environmental benefits that must be considered on their merits against the policies in the development plan as a whole. Crucially, no harm or concerns have been identified in terms of providing safe or sustainable access, and all impacts have been mitigated as confirmed by the statutory consultees. There can be no doubt that the proposals before you have significant planning merit.
1 minute remaining.
The scheme is well designed and the locational advantage of the site, including providing sustainably located additional services in line with your local plan, are compelling. I would urge you to support your officer's recommendation. In doing so, you'll be recognising that the importance of economic growth, including the creation of local job opportunities, which will not be at the detriment to the Gillingham Village. To the contrary, they will be to the village's benefit. Thank you for listening. I would welcome any questions that you may have.
Questions of Tim? I've just got one on the footpath. It's a permissive at the moment, and it's in the ownership of the applicant.
Correct.
And one of the things I was going to ask Richard, if we could put more certain of there to have a proper cycleway and footpath, because that's very important all around the county, not just here, but to separate bicycles and things and scooters from pedestrians. Is that a reasonable request to do that?
It's more than reasonable, Chair, but it's already included in the development proposals. So the description of development includes upgrading the existing footway to a foot and cycleway. That's confirmed in the description of development, and it will be secured by planning condition.
Right, thank you. Any more questions, members?
Sorry, I've just got a question about the footpath as well. Is it going to have lights on it? Because I was thinking that if with the hedges either side, it's going to be very dark. Sorry if that's not a planning issue, but I just was wondering, because if you have a dark footpath, it leads to all sorts of other things going on if it's not lit.
That will be subject to detailed design, but the lighting will be sensibly done, recognising the rural environmental standards that are achieved elsewhere on the scheme.
Third time lucky. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to just go over the alternative sites that are mentioned there, about 15 of them, which is pretty good. I can't actually see Tesco's car park or Morrison's car park having the facilities for it. When you looked at these, I assume that they're taken down because overall they would not take in your complete requirements. So my question is, how important are the industrial units of your plan to the overall well-being, if you like, of your project?
Thank you, Councillor Bills. So just to explain, multiple sequential assessments have been undertaken here. So what the term is town centre uses, if you like, have one sequential analysis which has to look at in-centre locations, edge of centre locations, and then only this site can then be considered if those are satisfied. The trade units are then subject to a separate sequential test that looks at alternative allocated employment sites to rule those sites out. So they are dealt with separately. We haven't said it's a massive development, it must go on one site. We've actually compartmentalised relative to the policy requirements for the uses arising and then applied those. So in the context of your overall question, how important are the trade uses? They are critical. They provide an essential service that provides a critical mass overall that makes the development viable and attractive, and the interest that we've had expressed from significant operators demonstrate that actually providing facilities in this location will have real benefit. Our highway consultant undertook some analysis of that benefit, and it was going to save thousands of private car miles a year by locating these types of facilities here, rather than residents and business having to go further afield to comparable facilities. So there are real sustainable benefits, which actually is a matter that the County Council took great interest in when we submitted our technical note.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I know litter was obviously mentioned, and obviously that's quite a part of your kind of new scheme, and obviously a new litter policy, we'll call it, will be coming forward. Now, obviously, I know you mentioned during your presentation that it would encompass the whole site, but I know when our applications have come forward, they actually have a condition where they actually have to look at things off the site for a certain area around. I don't know from where I am, our own McDonald's will actually clear up not just its area, but they will do literally about half a mile out in every direction. Is that something you'll be also looking at, and also the possible installation of extra bins off your site to allow people to throw away rubbish? No matter what you do, someone's always going to do it anyway, but every little helps.
Thank you, Councillor. Very good question. So part of the existing issue is that the litter management plan that was secured under the existing roadside facilities development required the tenants to effectively deal with their on-site waste, and then only really McDonald's had to deal with waste within 150 metres of their boundary. So what's resulted is that there's a kind of the duties of those operators haven't really gone much beyond their demise. So my client has taken it upon themselves to have a management company which does look at those areas, particularly on the service road and to the south. But because of agency issues recently, there has been quite a significant issue with those not being done properly. So what we are suggesting is a more robust litter management plan, which looks at the entire red line area. And indeed, we could look at streets beyond that area, given the issues that have been identified by the objectors. And we'd be happy to agree those details via a planning condition to ensure that the litter from this development does not continue to disrupt residents of the village.
Can we condition that, Richard?
Yeah, well, it's already down on the conditions number 7. Submission and approval of updated litter management plan. Something we've
Oh, right,
noticed
okay, yep.
and recognised. Yeah.
And that was for the red line.
Yeah.
Chairman, obviously, we were talking about obviously go a little bit further than the red line.
So 7 would include red line? Yeah.
Tim's right. We have signed off conditions previously on the first expansion for the individual operators, and McDonald's have their own litter management plan as well. But this would, this effectively would look at things afresh.
Because I would think the trade units wouldn't produce litter, it's the food things that produce litter. Yeah?
Yeah, and I think there was a recent issue with some litter not being collected, but as Tim said, that was just a one-off issue, and I think has been dealt with now.
Any more questions? No? Tim, thank you. If you'd like to take your place again. So we finished public speaking. So we're going to come members for their thoughts and ideas. And there are quite a few things that could be covered in this. Who's going to start us off? Rush to the front. Domi? Did you just raise your hand?
No.
Oh, no.
I may have a
Sorry?
Just checking something.
You're just checking something. Mr. Bills, Councillor Bills.
I don't know whether this is the right thing to ask here or not, but I'm going to do it anyhow. I would like to ask our planning officer, please, for the sake of myself and probably a few people, there have been complaints of the viability of this operation, whether it's necessary, whether it's going to detract or attract various areas. It is important, but how much from the planning side of things do you take that into account?
We do, yeah. We look at obviously the applicant submitted a detailed land use justification report, which obviously looked at the sequential analysis. What we've looked at here is we are looking to expand principally the roadside services, and the roadside services side in terms of the EV charge and the retail element. The farm shop was something that was previously approved but never implemented. Taken as a whole with the trade units, which were due to the applicant's pre-contractual arrangements with particular interested operators, they were a key part. So there was no point where we thought we would look to disaggregate, separate this development down. It needs to come as a whole. It works together. We've considered obviously how that might affect Beccles, Bungay, Loddon. We feel that this is very much should be treated as a roadside development, roadside services development. Obviously, I accept some of the criticisms from, obviously the representations made that there is a concern around, obviously the impact on particularly Beccles, but we principally would say that this is an expansion of an existing facility, and therefore, we have looked at that in detail as to could we accommodate that in a more sequentially preferable place. We have not found a site that could do that. So obviously we've also recognised that this does have some sustainability benefits in terms of the foot and cycle links, the buses and obviously the ability to obviously add further sustainable convenience provision for locals who might otherwise have to travel to Beccles for daily essentials. So I think, we have looked at that in detail.
Any more? No? So we're going to go to the record. Oh, John?
Richard, can I just ask the question how far the hall is from the applicant's application?
So the hall is across the way. I think I might put it at the start of the report. I noticed that there was an allegation that they haven't been notified of this. I have just checked the system. According to our records in 2023, we did send a letter to that Gillingham Hall. We have extensively advertised it with site notices as well. The actual distance, haven't got that exactly to hand, but it is quite a substantial distance in our view. What we did do is we assessed the impacts on the conservation area as well as obviously the listed buildings, including Gillingham Hall. There is a substantive level of vegetation that separates the site and the conservation area. The Senior Heritage and Design Officer felt that there was no visual impact there at all. And obviously, whilst I, have listened to the comments, we came to a different view. Historic England haven't raised any objection, so that's what led us to our conclusion today.
Okay, John? Yeah. So we'll go to the recommendation to authorise the Assistant Director of Planning to approve subject to the conditions. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
Sorry, Chairman, just to jump in, there are a couple of the extra recommendations that were in, or conditions that were in the update sheet, just to note. So there's
That's
26,
the hours
27.
of...
Yeah, so it's the hours of our operation, the detailed design, drawing of the EV charging signature, and the implementation of noise scheme as well, just to make sure we're aware of those. Sorry.
So can I say authorise the Assistant Director of Planning to approve subject to conditions, including the conditions in the update sheet? Okay, members, all those in favour, please raise your hand.
Chairman, that looks to be unanimous, Chair, for approval.
Right, so unanimous. We are going to have a little break because we need to move people out of the room. So members, if you want to get a drink quickly, we're going to have a 5-minute break.